Hi, guys. Welcome back to another live streaming here on our Rise Your Eyes. As you can see, we are proceeding with this long, endless analysis of the final episode of Shingeki no Kyojin, called even the last chapters. Thank you so much for the support for yesterday. I went on 4 hours and almost 4 hours and 30 minutes, so it was quite awesome. But at the same time, I want to thank one of my subscribers that in the previous live streaming told me something essential. That means, and something that, to be honest with you, I skipped while I was reacting. Maybe because sometimes while reacting, you comment, and in the meantime, the characters are saying something specifically. Then when you go on and you rewatch the episode, you get another vision of the things, and you discover what was missing in your thoughts. Basically, yes, I'm telling you this while I waited a little bit. You join me, but yeah, basically, yesterday I was guessing. I was trying to understand why Ymir was not talking at all. If you remember, first of all, part one, you will find it on the channel. There is the link in description. But yes, one of my subscribers said, yes, look, Ymir is not talking because it's well said that her tongue was cut off from by King Fritz from the moment in which her village was conquered. Yes, I have to say sorry for this because I didn't pay attention in that specific moment during the episode while they were saying the reason why Ymir is not talking. So thank you so much for that subscriber to have told me this little but really important detail. And I will start talking about Ymir again when we will reach the moment in which Eren and Armin are talking for the last time. So I will find over there. That sentence, and thanks to that sentence, I will reformulate some of my thoughts, especially regarding the fact that Ymir, by not being able to talk, she suffered double. I mean, think about it, a person that can't talk and can't express her or his feelings, he or she is limited more, even more than a person who can talk. So we will talk about these later when I will reach that moment. But now it's time to start and go ahead with what we were saying yesterday. In fact, we stopped the live streaming in the moment in which Peak is trying to attack Eren by saying, "Look, I'm not even Eren's friend, so let me go and attack now." And Eren is stopping her thanks to the reproduction, let's say to the resurrection of this hammer titan, that is attacking her, but it's not killing her. So it's just a way of saying, look, it's not the proper time to fight me now or to end me now because other things are going to happen. We needed to remember that Eren already saw from the future everything that it's going to happen, more or less. So basically, by saying this, we understand even why he didn't kill Pick, and he was just waiting for the proper moment that thing was about to happen. That means killing him. So let's go ahead, starting from this point. Okay, here we go ahead. Exactly. In fact, the Pick here is stopped by the Titan, so she can't activate the bomb that was supposed to kill him. By the way, sorry if the connection sometimes is giving problems. So the reason why is that today there is such a bad weather outside. The wind is blowing so fast. So in the case you see that sometimes the internet connection is going here and there, you know why. Okay. Okay, we reached this exact moment yesterday. Yeah, for a second, the person that was talking together with Mueller, I thought he was Onyankopon, but then I realized no, it's impossible that Onyankopon felt great immediately after, etc., etc. No, so, but for a second, I was thinking, is that Onyankopon that regained his strength? No. Okay, I have to say one thing that I already said during the reaction, and basically is the fact that I really like the Commander Mueller. That is this new captain, or let's say, yeah, commander of the forces of Marley trying to stop the rumbling. I really liked him even in the previous episode. That means episode, I mean, season three, sorry, season four, part three. Or call it a special episode part one. I mean, there are so many ways to call these episodes. But yeah, I really like Mueller because he could understand what the real problem was from actually from the beginning of the rumbling, because he understood that the main problem is the uh, human beings who are not cooperating, who are not hearing or trying to understand the others. And even in this moment, in this episode, while the other Marlians are afraid to counterattack the rumbling because they are even saying, look, we used so many men for the airplanes, I mean, from the Zeppelins attacks. So now we run out of people who can attack, or we run out of weapons that can be used to attack. Eren, or at least the rumbling. So, what we are supposed to do. And Mueller, anyway, is replying in one of the most amazing way. That is, wait a second, that I go back for a second. Yes, exactly. And he's replying, oh no, wait to see. The internet connection sometimes goes here and there. Wait a second that I'm trying to go back. Yes. Ah, Mueller is saying, is that any reason for us to sit back and do nothing? That's amazing. And it's connecting to what we were saying even in season four, part two, when Niccolo was saying we need to go ahead trying to go out from the forest. Because even if we have a huge problem in front of ourselves, so we needed to find a way to counterattack until we understand that we can't do anything more. Or even if we think we can't do anything more, we have to go on and keep trying. So I really liked what Mueller said here because it's quite inspiring, and it makes you understand that until you have a way to breathe, you have to keep going on trying and never give up. Um, I think Mueller even said this because later Another reason why I like him sincerely as a character is his way to try to cooperate by understanding the mistakes that were made in the past as a previous generation that influenced the next one. Now he is trying his best to repair for his mistakes. He really reminds me of Magath, because we know that unfortunately Magath died and he couldn't be here together with all the other characters seeing an evolution of his thoughts. But the beautiful thing is that other people from the previous generation is understanding what's wrong, what was wrong, and how it's good for the previous generation to admit their mistakes and to try to do something different, not just to save Marlians, but even trying to save the people they were against them, or the people they, Marlians, were trying to go against. That means the aliens. So, yeah, I think that Mueller already showed multiple times how he is trying to change things, and how it's never too late to change things, because sometimes even yes, all the generations nowadays in our real world, they say, but look, I lived my life already, there's nothing I can change, or no, it's too late to change things, or it's late to change the mistakes that I make, so I just wanted to put all of my hopes to the new generation so they can repair what I did. No, it's never too late to change. And in fact, Mueller gives us this clear example that when you really wanted to change something, and it's coming from your heart or from your consciousness, it's never too late, even if it means that it's your last breath, or the last few moments of your life. It's never too late to change your mind. And usually when we reach the last moment of our life, and this is connecting even to what Zeke says later, usually, yeah, when we reach the last moments of our life, we think about what we have done, and we have those seconds that are extended, in which we think about what was right, what was wrong, if there was something we could change, if there is a way of changing our thoughts that we have always went on with throughout our lives. Yeah, in this case, I think Mueller is quite inspiring the new generations too, because he is commending the new generations to try to think differently, even if before that moment they thought something else. But they have to be realistic and see the truth in that specific moment that they are living. And yeah, I think that this is a great character, and even if as you all know, Mueller is not a main character, a secondary character, a thirdly character. I mean, it could even be mentioned in the last in the last range of characters. But the most important thing is that in this story, as much as I told you so many times, even characters who are saying one bar, I mean one sentence. Um, and then they disappear, or actually something bad is happening to them, or I don't know, I mean, you understand what I mean. Characters who usually don't have these relevance in the story, they can be relevant, and they can tell you something that it's pretty meaningful. And in fact, even in this case, Mueller is one of those characters, as much as for what I told you about Magath, who was a great character, little by little going ahead with the episodes. But yeah, in this last part, as much as I told you this for Kaya, for Magath, for many other characters, even Sasha's dead, etc., etc., when these characters are appearing, they make you understand that everyone is important in this story, that everyone, even the smallest character, can make a huge difference, and he is one of them. Let's go ahead. And in fact, he's saying even those guys who are fighting now, that means John, Connie, Levi, Mika, Armin, they are fighting desperately to reach something. And actually, he's even saying that just what it is that you think they are fighting for. Yeah, because they have never had the chance. Mueller and all these Marlian soldiers has never had the chance to talk to these people coming from Paradise and understand what they wanted to do. So he is even guessing why they are fighting so bad against the Eren and the Rumbling, because if they come from Paradise, they should be happy that Eren is trying to save them. So he is confused too, but at the same time, later, or even now that we are omniscient viewers, we understand why the Paradise friends that we have are fighting, basically because they also changed their mind, and they want humanity to be all together, and they are fighting against Eren because they understood the importance of let the people change their mind and not be divided forever. This division has to end somehow, and it has to end properly. And how to end this thing is to be conscious enough to understand that what happened in Paradise before the rumbling, or even before understanding that humanity was even outside the walls, the thoughts were different because they thought that humanity was beyond these walls. Behind these walls only. But once they understood that beyond the walls there are other people, things changed. And in fact, many people changed their mind about this in Paradise. Then there were other people, as for the Jaegerists, who didn't want to change their mind and didn't want to give them the chance to communicate. But we know people like Armin, he likes to communicate, to make a difference. And little by little, these things will change. Even if later, at the end of the episode, we know that there are still some political movements inside of Paradise, etc., etc. But little by little, people can try to let other people change. It's the goal to go out from the forest somehow. Can they make it totally? Of course not, because later other wars will happen. But the will to try is one of the best things. Until you know that you can try, let's keep trying. Ciao, ti saluto dall'Italia, Firenze. Ciao, ciao. Sto ancora piangendo per il finale nonostante abbia letto il manga 2 anni fa. L'ho seguito sin dal 2013. Benvenuto tra noi e se vuoi iscriviti. Come ben capisci io sono italiana, ma parlo in inglese perché ho una community un po' più vasta a livello internazionale. Però sicuramente iscriviti, che così continuiamo a parlare di Shingeki no Kyojin anche dopo questo grande finale, perché sicuramente, essendo anime only, dopo io acquisterò tutto il manga. E quindi, grazie mille, allora un bacione, grazie per seguirmi come sempre. E acquisterò il manga e quindi analizzerò anche il manga, perché mi piace vedere la diversità tra il manga e l'anime e anche insomma fare un'analisi di tipo artistico, quindi resta con me. Grazie mille per esserti iscritto come sempre, grazie per essere qui. So let's go ahead in the meantime. If you have some comments, feel free to write them in the chat box. I will read them time after time, because otherwise I can't go on with the analysis that it's pretty endless, if you understood what I mean. Okay. Okay. I wanted to spend some words. I wanted to say something, um, something that I really believe. I wanted to thank the studios that made it possible. I mean, that made this anime possible. First of all, I want to thank WIT Studio, because without them, this adventure couldn't happen, couldn't start. But I even want to thank Mappa Stagio or Mappa Studio because they helped us reaching the end. I mean, I'm talking about we anime only. We didn't have the chance otherwise to see an ending as you manga readers. So I'm really happy that thanks to Mappa we could see an ending. And yes, there are people debating about the ending episode, the fact that some things were modified a little bit. We will talk about these when I will reach that specific moment in the episode. But um, I think that both the studios made a great job, and here the action parts of these episodes, even season 4 part 3, that means what we watched some months ago, it's pretty nice to watch. They made great animations, especially when they have to fight. I have to be honest, I think that Hayashi, I mean the director of Mappa Studio, his face became a total black in order to make this episode, but I'm happy that now he can rest. I hope so. But anyway, let me go ahead. Yes, because now I was watching these action parts, and I definitely think that they are super amazing. Yeah. Standing ovation for Reiner too. I mean, most of the times during these episodes, he is fighting by himself. Reiner, look, yeah, I told you these already in the previews analysis for season 4, part 3. You can find it on the channel. Um, yeah, it's like as if Reiner became a real hero of this story. The hero that definitely he wanted to become because of other reason. That means to please his mom, to be recognized by others, etc., etc. But the hero he became now, it's not just a hero who wants to be pleased by others. He also feels that he's doing the right thing now, and he is becoming a hero even for himself as a real way to recognize himself as one. So I think that Reiner was definitely one of the greatest characters of this story. And you see that at the beginning he had a dream because he was pushed by others or because he had to be recognized as a real person who has a great intention to save humanity, etc., etc. Yes, we know that from the other side of the world, I mean from the other side of the ocean, they had a totally different conception about how to become a hero and how to kill these people because of their past, etc., etc. But Reiner changed a lot. Reiner could have had the chance to create a development as a character that we really needed to watch. And I'm so happy that right now, even in front of his mom, even if now Karina has a different vision of the things, fortunately, I should say, but I'm so happy to see that he became what he really wanted to become based on the development of the character that he had and based on the experiences that made him have a different vision and now becoming the hero who's saving humanity for real, without differences, without taking a side. I mean, without making a difference between the Marlians and the rest of the world and the Paradise. Now he is trying to save humanity entirely and not just one side of it. So that makes a difference, and that's why I'm saying that Reiner made a great change. and he deserves that he survives, that he keeps going on living, and he has a chance to start living once again, but this time in the best way. Yeah. Okay. Mhm. Of course. Now we reached one of the most important moments of this episode that I already announced you yesterday a little bit. It's the moment in which Armin is confronting his own self. Um, Basically, now he Armin is saying, "Are you going to suffocate me?" Because in this case he is talking to Eren, because we needed to remember the fact that no matter what kind of previous Titan form it's appearing, it's coming from Eren and the will of Eren to stop him. But it's also, in my opinion, if you check things differently, because yes, let me tell you honestly, if you are new here on this channel, you don't probably know this, but I don't like to see one vision only of the things. I would like to extend my horizons and try to understand multiple views on purpose, because this story gives you the chance to see the story itself in different ways. So um, I'm trying to see even the options that might seem impossible to believe, just to have fun with you, but also to be able to share all the possible thoughts that I have. Then, if in the future I'm going to modify these thoughts and think something different, okay, it might happen. And actually, it happened throughout the years. But now that we have the finale, I mean, we have the end of the story, and we know that this ending was an opening end. I mean, it was not something limited, something that everyone can understand in one way only. I'm here to tell you my different points of view. Then, which one do I pick? I don't pick anything. I just randomly talk about what I saw. But here, yes, I was telling you, Armin might be referring to Ymir because he saw Ymir taking him away from that context that was happening. So Armin is definitely trying to talk to Ymir right now. Sorry, did I say Eren? So in that case, I was wrong. But it could be an option too, because we needed to understand that Ymir died, but at the same time, Eren got the power from Ymir to control everything. So even if Armin is stopped, let's say, by Eren and took Armin away from that thing, I mean, from that context that was happening, it could make sense for the things that I told you already in the previous live streaming of yesterday. That means everything happens in a specific moment at a specific time. So in that moment, Armin didn't have to explode, transforming in the colossal titan. It was not the right time to do so. And I think that even Armin felt it. I mean, he kept saying, "Yes, I know that I have to transform right now," but something inside himself was telling him, probably this is not the right time to do so. So maybe it's better if I wait, even if all the others were pushing him to do it, except for Mikasa. Because if it was for Mikasa, of course, it was never the proper time to do so. But yeah, so while he was taken back away from that scenario, we noticed that Armin was looking at Ymir. So now he is talking to her, and he's trying to reach her because he wants to have a contact with her too to understand her more. Because even for Armin, this figure of Ymir is pretty mysterious. Nobody is understanding her will, nobody is understanding what she really wants to convey as a message, etc. etc. So right now, Armin feels that he is somewhere else, and he feels that he is almost dying. Do you remember the same exact thing happened to Zeke in season 4, part 2? So he was almost dying, but then something happened after he exploded that thunder spear while he was on a cart together with Levi. So it seems as if, even from these moments, we understand that Zeke and Armin are having more or less the same experience with Ymir. And it's quite hilarious if you think about it, because later, both, I mean, Armin and Zeke are having a conversation, one of the most important conversations. So I think that this is pretty meaningful. Even in the case of Zeke, at the end, at the beginning of season 4, part 2, we notice that he feels that he's almost dying. He feels so peaceful. There's complete silence. But then he notices that he's not dead. And the same thing will happen to Armin. He believes that everything is almost over, that he's dying, but then he's discovering the contrary, that he's not dying, that he just reached the dimension of the paths. But it's pretty interesting to see now how Armin is talking to himself. He is reaching the moment of almost dying. And as I told you, while you are almost dying, probably, I don't know yet, but probably when I will reach that moment too, I will think the same. When you're almost dying, you are thinking a lot, because you think that there are the last moments to think, the last moments to understand the things, or to be relieved by understanding your mistakes and whatever. So I think even Armin is reaching the moment in which he is confronting himself before thinking that he's dying, even if that's not happening. So let's go ahead and watch this amazing moment. See, he is saying, "Is that it, Eren?" Because, of course, if he dies, there's no way that he can confront Eren, or he can talk to him for the last time, or he can have the chance to change things based on what the two are saying. So I feel Armin here really hopeless. And I know that in many other moments of this story, these kind of um, feelings happened inside Armin's character. But I think that the way he feels hopeless now is priceless, because he has never reached a level like this, a level of knowledge, a level of uh, hopelessness, or even the fact that he doesn't know what to do anymore. He feels so confused, and at the same time, even if on one hand he knows what to do, that means to talk to it, and on the other side he doesn't know how to reach that moment. So yeah, he is pretty lonely, in my opinion. He feels really hopeless, and he feels as if he is reaching the bottom, as much as I told you yesterday. That is one of the things that usually happen in manga stories, or in anime stories, if they are original anime. I think Japanese people really like to portray the moment in which a character is reaching the bottom. Because when you reach the bottom, you can't lose anything anymore. So that's the proper time for the character to find the perfect resolution and the perfect courage to stand up again. I think, as I told you yesterday, that this is quite common in Japanese culture, because they really believe that every time you are going to reach the bottom, there is always a way to stand up again, stand up stronger than before, and find the courage inside yourself, or find a sort of a solution to your problems. That nothing is over until you really want. So if you don't want that thing is over, you'll still be able to keep trying. That is more or less the same thing that I told you now for Mueller thing, for the Mueller scene. So yeah, I really believe that Armin here is personifying even the phoenix, and this is another mythological creature that Japanese people really like, because it's connecting exactly with the principle they believe. That means fall down 7 times, stand up 8. This is what they usually say. I mean, it's a way of saying in Japanese, and I really like this motto because it's true, it's real, it's realistic. If you think about it, every time you think you can't do it anymore, inside yourself something is happening that gives you the strength to stand up again. And I think Armin is following this principle for real. You see that right now he's quite desperate, he's crying, he is sending to his own self all these hateful words, but it's the proper way to explode, to convey his feelings to his own self once for all, before standing up again and do what he has to do. So I think that uh, a character like Armin really needed these moments, uh, because he really needed to touch the bottom. Yes. Um, so I really believe that everyone in our lives reached that moment in which we confront ourselves, and especially when we are pretty sad, when we don't see the end of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, we think that everything is over. We feel that there is no more solutions. We believe that nothing can change. And based on what he also said in season one, as we analyzed yesterday in the previous live streaming, you realize that he needs to be ready to abandon something to let the change start. And he needs to admit this to himself first, to accept it. Because even Armin, together with Mikasa, they couldn't accept that this moment actually would have come. One thing is to believe that it will come, and one thing is to live that exact moment. In which you know that there is no turning back. So I think that Armin still has the hope to meet Eren, but at the same time, little by little, he is realizing that this has to happen in order to create something that is different than before. And based on what he said in season one, if you don't abandon something, you can't change anything. So there's the need of leave something aside, in this case, Eren, to turn this into a real change. This is really painful, and at the same time he has to confront himself regarding the fear that he has to stand up again, because we know that Armin has always been the character who was fragile at the beginning of this story, who couldn't who seemed who could who seemed he couldn't change anything, a character that was always afraid to stand up and act or react, a character that has always had to deal with his insecurities. So, especially in this last episode, when he's confronting his own self, and he is like a face to face for the last time, he is even spreading the hate he has against himself for the way in which he feels as if he is a coward because he doesn't want to move and react. He is pushing his own self to stand up and fight. It's like as if there is a dualism between what he really wants to do and his body that is not responding to his will. Maybe because everything is moved by fear. Maybe because he knows that right now, especially in this moment, there's no turning back. So if he will decide to stand up and fight, there is no other way rather than kill Eren. So the fear that doesn't make your body move or act as you really want, the fear that unconsciously speaking, no, the fear of the body that unconsciously speaking is ruling on your thoughts, that is controlling your mind. So these dualism of a personality, the fact that you see that the body is not moving at all, and he's standing and begging the body to move because the body has to respect the will of the thoughts that he has. This is so amazing. This contrast is emotional but even realistic, because even in our day life sometimes it happens that we really want to do something, but it's like as if we are not ready to do it, or we are afraid to do it. It's like a limitation when the body is a container because it's limiting what we really want to do. And that's why it's a sort of cage, you know. In this story we are always talking about the cages. It can be the gate for the pigs, it can be the walls, I mean the wall Maria, Rose and Sina, uh, the cage, like the cage of a bird, like in the episode when Falco was finally confessing to Gabi his feelings, and he felt free to open his heart in front of her. So there are lots of cages that are containing the will of a people, or they are making the people feel less free. You know, the lack of freedom as another theme of this great story. And Armin here, right now in this scene, he feels inside a cage because he wants to do something, he wants to respond, but the body seems not to move. The body seems he's a cage. And I remember in season one when they were trying to attack the Titans as a attack for what happened in episode one, and I remember Armin who couldn't even stand. I mean, who couldn't even raise his arm to try to get the gas. Do you remember when they were trying to refilling the gas because they were running out of it, and he could see the impossibility of moving even in that case, and he was like a prisoner of his own body. Yes, right now Armin is feeling the same exact thing, but at that time Eren tried to convince him by shaking his arm and telling him that, Armin, that's the thing we needed to do. So he was shaking Armin's mind a little bit to revive him somehow. But now there's no more Eren wants to help him, let's say. I mean, there is no more the Eren of season one who is trying to help him, saying, come on, Armin, we can do it. Now he's by himself. There's no one else. So I think that Ymir wanted to get Armin away on purpose to try to think. To find another solution, to try to confront himself first. That was the first demon um, to destroy before reaching the other demon to destroy that is his best friend. So as you can see, there's a time for everything, but we needed to do things step by step. Armin, before confronting the Eren and before let's say saving humanity because he killed him, he needed to confront himself first. He needed to reach the paths, that dimension, to meet Zeke and think together. So, see, Arm and Zeke are having more or less the same path in these episode, because they both were taken to Ymir's path to think more, and then they both were confronting themselves, and then they both had a plan, but it seemed to be impossible to achieve it. One it was Zeke's plan, and one is Armin's thoughts regarding killing Eren, or find the proper time to transform into the colossal titan. So as you can see, they both had the same sort of destiny in this case. And I think that Armin had to reach the goal step by step and without rushing, because things would have never been the same if he rushed. And at the same time, Armin needed to go out from his cage before reaching the goal. Otherwise, that goal was pointless to reach. But if he can go out from his cage and explore himself, understanding what's wrong, and then reach the goal, that's the most natural way to go from A to B. Okay, instead of reaching B automatically without even stepping on A, that's unnatural. Things have a certain course of events, and you can't skip some events to reach the goal just because you want to be faster. No, things have to go ahead one by one, as it's order, because things are put in an order and in a specific space in a specific time. So you needed to follow these rules. Exactly. He thought that that was Eren trying to stop him in this, because he was also saying to Mikasa, look, I think Eren understands that now I wanted to transform, and uh, my transformation will definitely not kill him. He was sure of it, or he was trying to comfort Mikasa. I think both, because Armin is pretty intelligent and he goes beyond other people's thoughts. I mean, he has a way of thinking that is that sounds being even more mature than other characters, as for the moments that they are living. And he has the ability of thinking more carefully. So when now he's saying, no, it's not Eren that is trying to stop me, it's Ymir. She's trying to do this. Even if he doesn't understand why she wants to stop him, and later we will understand why. And everything makes sense, because Armin, before reaching the moment of Eren being killed, he needs to go step by step and recognize things one by one. He is focusing on Ymir right now because he saw her. Yes, actually, Armin is saying, mhm, yeah, Armin thinks that Ymir also wants humanity to be destroyed. I mean, to be slaughtered completely. Um, to be honest, if in the previous episode I thought so, I mean, I thought that she wanted to grant Eren the power to exterminate the entire world, the population, and she granted him the power because she was tired of being enslaved, and she was tired to stay over there for 2,000 years, waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, he came. So let me grant him my power so I can be free, etc., etc. No, I changed my mind sincerely, because I think that Ymir gave Eren the power to see, not only because finally she could release all the anger that she was feeling for 2,000 years for being enslaved. Yes, these could be true. But at the same time, based on what we saw even later after, I think that Ymir wanted to um, stop Armin for a second, not because she wanted Eren to keep going on destroying humanity, but because Armin needed to meet Zeke, needed to change some sort of things, and then going back with a sort of knowledge, with making a sort of change that was possible to stop the rumbling. Because you need to know, of course, that once Armin talks to Zeke, Zeke is trying to uh, convince or trying to let these other previous Titan owners to change their mind. He is trying his best to let them understand a different view of things based on the new conception that he has about life. And it's thanks to Zeke that the rumbling is stopping. So if Ymir is how Armin is saying right now, she wanted to keep exterminating people, she would have not taken Armin to let him go to the paths, I mean, to the dimension of the paths and meet Zeke. So I think that Ymir doesn't want people to be exterminated. She wanted to grant Eren the power that he really wanted to see if later, as we saw, as we noticed at the end of the episode, to see if someone can stop him, on the contrary. Because by stopping him, of course, there is all the power of the Kyojin inside himself, so there was a way to stop the Titan's power. So I don't think that Ymir was definitely mean. I don't think that she wanted to granted the power to Eren because she wanted to exterminate the entire population of the world. She needed to give Eren that power to see if someone was counterattacking him, if someone finally was able to stop all these. And she didn't take away Armin because she thought that Armin was something really mean, trying to stop Eren, but she took away Armin because Armin needed to reach Zeke, and thanks for talking to Zeke, Zeke could have tried to stop the rumbling by being killed by Levi. So, as you can see, all of these actions correspond to certain consequences of things that are happening later. And one thing is determining the other one. So, if you interrupt this course of events, then even the story will be modified. But that's not what it sounds like. The story can't be modified, even if you can try to modify some things. At the end of the day, the ending, the result has to be the same because the story is already written. So even Ymir, by being throughout the paths until these Titan powers will be over, all the owners, the previous owners of the Titans, and even the owners of now, they are all connected by the paths. So even Ymir knew very well that if Armin transformed into the colossal Titan in that moment after Peak's attack, then things would have gone differently. And the story would have not reached the main goal, that is erasing the Titan's power and trying to be free from this slavery of 2000 years. So I don't really think that, as Armin is saying at the beginning, Ymir was trying to stop him because she wanted to cooperate with Eren with the extermination of people. No, 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 no. The point is another one. If you erase one of the steps that they have to be taken in order to reach the goal, then you don't reach the goal. So everything has to be done in a certain order. And unfortunately, the real victims of all these are the common people who are going to be slaughtered in the meantime. Could we be, I mean, could we had the possibility to avoid all these? It's a hard to say it sincerely, but yes, if we talk about the real victims of this story, for sure the population of the entire world is the real victim, because 80% of the entire population is gone. And of course, common people who don't have any power, who don't have any sort of strength to contrast these, who are always being put aside because they are not so important as people who have these huge power, like the Titans powers owners, etc., etc., are the real victims. Even nowadays, you know more than me that the real victims of all the wars that are happening are the common people. And that's why um, Isayama's story will be powerful, not just for now, not just for these 10 years, but even after, because it will be pretty realistic even after 20 years, after 30 years, after 50 years. I mean, until human beings will be alive, unfortunately, even if we hope that these things will never happen again, they will, because new generations will come, and new, I mean, people are all different, people are selfish and whatsoever. So unfortunately, there will always be powerful people ruling or deciding for others, and these others are the victims of everything, the ones who have to pay for other people's decisions, people who are even more powerful. In this case, in this story, we are talking about the founding Titans power, we are talking about the Titans power. In our real world, we are talking about people who are on top of the world, who are ruling the world. So there is not a big difference, sincerely. But anyway, um, the number one victims in this story is the population of the world. Second of all, even Eren is a victim of himself, but we are going to talk about it later. Um, And I think that even Ymir feels guilty of some of the things she chose to do. We still don't understand, as much as I was telling you yesterday, we don't understand if the choice of opening the gate of the pigs was her own choice, or she was influenced by something coming from the future to open that gate, because if she opened that gate, then she could reach the tree, then she could reach the creature, then she could start the story. So as you can see, everyone is a victim here. But it depends on the ranking. I mean, the list of how much victim you are. Definitely the common people are number one victims, because they don't know anything about the Titan's power, or if they know, they don't know how to handle it, because their life was not based on meeting Titan's power and then use it, etc., etc. No, they are victims because they are impotent. They can't do anything. They can't stop the rumbling. They can't run, because even if they run, there is no way of escaping. They can't hide, because anyway, the rumbling is going to rumble everything. So there's no escape, right? Even if they try to fly and try to attack the rumbling from up from the upper side, there's no way they are surviving. So as you can see, there's no escape for them. And only people who are having these power, or if people who have the Titan's power can think to find a sort of solution, like in the case of Armin, or like in the case of Mikasa, that has another type of goal that is anyway connected to Eren, who has lots of powers. Yeah, only these people can try to solve things. But the common people who are slaughtered, who are murdered, they don't have any sort of power now. They maybe could have had it before. I'm not talking about the babies, okay? Being born in that specific moment. I'm talking about people like Mueller, for example, who changed his mind. I'm talking about Magath, another character who changed his mind. Yes, the previous generation that now are running um, away from the rumbling could have had in the past a way to solve things, but they were too blind to follow their convictions. So when you are brainwashed, when you are too convinced of some things, you don't see anything else, you don't see other options, and that's the mistake, I guess. So could they change the world before the rumbling? Yes, they could. um, was it something easy to do? No, it was not, because if you follow conventions that go ahead for 2000 years, then you can't expect that people are changing suddenly. They change because something catastrophical happens, and unfortunately we human beings don't learn from these. I mean, if we could avoid the catastrophe and don't feel regretful later, that would be amazing. But do you remember what Kiyomi said to Annie? And Annie replied to her. Kiyomi said, "Why do we have to realize that these are things once they are over, or once everything is collapsing already?" And Annie is saying, "It's too late to feel regretful now. We can't go back in time and remake things differently, right?" So even this repentance that might happen for sure, because when you see the tragedy happening, you can say, oh, if I would have behaved differently before, if I would have thought something differently before, things would have gone different. Thank you. Okay, thank you for telling me. It's obvious. um but yeah, common people can have their part of guilt, because I'm talking about the previous generations, not the babies that are living in the moment of the rumbling, because they could have thought differently. That's for sure. So they are victims, but they are also not so much victims because they could have changed the things. But the fact that they were convinced about their ideas, and nothing could have changed their ideas because they were brainwashed, or they were truly convinced that they were right from both sides. I'm saying, I mean, not just the Marley side, but even the parties, one with the Jaegerists, they were trying to do the same once again. Um, yeah, there are all fault people, all guilty people, but even all they are all victims of themselves. Human beings are victims of themselves based on the actions they are making, based on the ideals that they have, based on the beliefs that they have. You needed to understand that in this world, by thinking differently, we always have contrasts. We always fight for our ideas, and it's really hard to put everyone together in one place and people think the same, if you think about it. It's pretty hard because there are some beliefs, for example, religious beliefs, who are making people make contrasts because of different beliefs. There are politicians who are making us a fight all the time because we have different views. There are some other ideals that can make one go against the other one. So, as you can see, the world is built on contrasts, on conventions, on different ideas, different purposes, different beliefs. So, until there will be these contrasts, it would be really, really hard for the world to change. And it would be even quite impossible to create something unified, something that is good for everyone, because we are different. And by being different, it's impossible that we all agree the same things. I think this is quite natural because, as for what I told you yesterday, it's impossible that we can start to think all the same. It's absolutely impossible. The percentage that this will happen is impossible to reach. Um, but we can keep trying. That's the permanent goal that we have. That means to find a compromise, to talk more and fight less, to try to see if we can find a common idea of some sort of things. We should keep trying. If we talk about war, of course, we should find an immediate compromise without including victims. That means common people who are always paying for other people's decisions. If we talk about religious things and other stuff, yeah, there should be a greater communication. But as you can see, as if no, while Marlians were thinking that aliens were culprits and vice versa, if you have these strong beliefs that are perpetrated for thousands of years, it's not easy to erase everything and start everything from the beginning in a second. Something unfortunate might happen to let people understand the tragedy first, and then to understand the limit that they have reached. Sometimes human beings don't understand the limits that they can reach. They are human, they are limitful, but at the same time, when they think they can do something, their limits are endless. It's a paradox, but that's what we are. We are limited because we think that we can be almighty when we can't. We can think that we are perfect when we can't. We think that we can stay on top of others where we shouldn't do something like this. So we have some sort of a perfection or almighty thoughts, but then something is happening to let everything fall apart and let us understand how limitful we are. Because if our life is limitful, even what we think that we are can be considered limitful. But we are too presumptuous sometimes to realize this, to face ourselves, to face the limits that we have. And Armin, going back to what I was saying before, is now concentrating on this, to face himself, to face his limits, to open that cage that was always confining him inside of it, and let not be able to be what he really wanted to be, to choose what he really wanted to do, to act instantly when he decided that he could. So, yeah, human beings have to face sometimes their cages. It can be a psychological cage, it can be a physical cage, or whatever, but even beliefs can become cages, unfortunately. Even ideals can become cages. Our own thoughts can become cages and make us feel limitful. So there should be, once for all, a way to confront ourselves and ask ourselves, are we good? Are we bad? Did we do something good? Did we do something bad? How can we repair to these? Being humble. Yes, I think people should be humble. Even the people who stay on top of the world right now in our world, and even in the case of Eren, to feel humble enough to recognize the mistakes that they make. Even in the case of Zik, this process is happening, even if he says later that to Xaver that his idea was anyway good, in his opinion. He says that because in my opinion, there are moments in which some human beings, even if they have in front of themselves the reality as it is, that means it was a mistake, they still don't want to accept it. Or they still don't want to say it out loud that it was a mistake. They prefer to say, oh, anyway, yes, I thought that was a great idea, but. So as you can see, it's hard for some people to accept the mistake, to admit it, and to move forward doing something that is totally the contrary. but Zik could make it. So when we reach Zik and Armin's conversation, you will understand what I mean, definitely. But yeah, now I still want to focus on Armin because this contrast between the body and the soul, the contrast between the confinement that is the body and the soul, that means the thoughts, what he really wants to do, his will, etc., etc. Even in philosophy, you know that this is a huge contrast, that this is something pretty common if you study philosophy. Uh, Philosophers who were debating about the body being a cage and not let the soul express itself completely. Um, these kind of themes are quite amazing. I mean, to be honest with you, that's what I love, sincerely. That's why I read mangas or I watch anime, because I'm sure that throughout these subjects like philosophy, psychology, whatever, you can definitely find some things that are portrayed even in the stories that we are reading or that we are watching. Because uh, everything is how can I say, a perpetuation. I mean, everything goes from one generation to the other one. Even the concepts, even in previous mangas, you could find the same things, the same subjects, because nothing is new anymore. I mean, the same subjects are repeated over and over again, even if in different ways. But it's so hard to find original stories in which you find other sort of meaning to the story itself. That's why I'm saying that after Shingeki no Kyojin, even if Shingeki no Kyojin took inspiration from other stories too, but it will be hard for me to think that in the future a story like this can be surpassed somehow. Maybe we could have said the same with the Devilman by Go Nagai, but there are stories that will never be forgotten because of the importance that they give based on the meaning or the messages they wanted to convey. So I think that even Shingeki no Kyojin is becoming one of those stories that it will be so hard to forget or so hard to surpass. But let's see what's going to happen in the future, of course. So uh, let's see if I really hope so. I mean, if there are stories coming after that can surpass Shingeki no Kyojin as messages, ideals, concepts, plot twists. Hi, Mikasa, don't cry. um, or anyway, the characterization of the subjects, the characters, the personifications, the symbolisms, and whatever. Okay, if there will be a story that can surpass Shingeki no Kyojin in the future, I will be the one saying, "Wow, I'm so amazed!" and thank you, Shingeki no Kyojin, for having inspired these future stories. So I can't wait to see who's going to challenge a story like this and see how it will be greater than these. Can't wait, even if I still have doubts. So far, but of course I have doubts because now I'm living in the present. I don't have Eren's power that he can move from present to past and future whenever he wants. I mean, not yet. Okay, let me go ahead. No, this is the problem. Yes, now that Armin feels hopeless and he feels confused. I mean, he feels that he is sure of his thoughts, but he is completely confused, in my opinion. Because even when he says Ymir is invincible, no, she's not. At the end of the story, we noticed that no, she's not. She's not invincible at all. Armin thinks that Ymir is invincible because he still doesn't understand her purpose. Because she is not so clear enough to say anything. And now I wanted to go back to the beginning of this live streaming because yesterday, yes, one of my subscribers told me that actually something that I skipped it, not because I really want to skip it, but because I was not focusing during the reaction. Ymir has her tongue cut off by the king. So the fact that she's not even talking, the fact that she is not even expressing things because she can't write, she can't say anything, that makes this approach to Emir even more difficult. And the fact that Eren could understand her is because she was not talking. He was, because he knew her story. He knew about being a slave, because he also felt that living in paradise, confined into walls, meant being a slave. So let's say that Eren had a sort of empathy, also because he had the not just the Shingeki no Kyojin power, but even the founding the Titans power. So Eren could understand Ymir, even if Ymir couldn't even talk and couldn't express her feelings, rather than showing it with her eyes of anger when she was hugged by Eren. She can't talk. So that's why people can't guess her completely or clearly. That's why it's so hard for all the others to understand how she feels and what she wants to say. And she's mute. She's muted, completely muted from the moment her tongue was cut off by the king. So if we put ourselves in the position of Ymir, staying in that dimension for 2000 years by not talking, there was no one she could confront with. She was alone by herself. She was even alone for the fact that she couldn't talk and nobody could understand her. So it's a double limit that she had. And then Eren reached her. She was hugged. And yeah, I will tell you my thoughts about the love that Ymir wanted to feel later. But yeah, when Armin is saying Ymir is invincible, not at all. It's the point is that you think Ymir decided to cooperate with Eren in all these. And I also said 8 months ago that I was thinking that Ymir was influencing Eren by doing what he was doing, but at the end of the day, um, I think Eren and Ymir are fighting for two different things, especially when they were together, standing one next to the other one. And Eren was repeating, "We only have one solution, to fight." He was saying it. She was not saying it because she couldn't talk. But I think that Ymir was fighting for something else. Eren is fighting for his principles that definitely are wrong, okay, to exterminate all the population, etc. And he is fighting for his own revenge, and at the same time, this revenge is also connecting for the will of his friends to live longer, etc., etc. But Ymir, in my opinion, the only thing that they have in common, Eren and Ymir, at this point, to fight for something, is to fight, to debate, to confront the problem of the slavery and to erase it. Yes, they have this will of a fight in common. But for the rest, I think that they are pretty different. I think Ymir wanted to fight to find love, while Eren was fighting to perpetrate his goal. That means to gain his revenge, to be free by even believing to fight for this revenge. Because freedom is not just freedom of being a titan, freedom of being a monster, and whatever. Freedom is also the concept of being free from the curse itself, the curse that he also perpetrated, he also can't get rid of, etc., etc. But he also wants to fight to get to have his friends saved and to let them live longer. So there are different will here. I mean, he wants to fight for different reasons, not just for the fact that he wants to move forward and to exterminate everyone. There is even that thing, but it's not the only thing. So we needed to keep these in mind. Let's go on. And then, of course, Armin keeps being feeling like this, as if he is hopeless because he is saying, I don't think I can do anything anymore. That it's the perfect moment in which, as I told you, he is almost collapsing. He is reaching the bottom, but reaching this bottom is necessary because if he didn't reach these hopeless feelings and if he didn't reach this state of mind, he couldn't stand up again later. So it's when, I mean, even in real life, when we feel hopeless, as I told you before, that condition, that state of mind is necessary for us to find the proper courage or the light at the end of the tunnel, that the small light that can help us ascend once again. So I really liked even the fact that in this scene you see Armin in pitch darkness. He is not surrounded by any sort of light, and it's pretty meaningful because Armin right now is in a pitch darkness. It's right that he is in pitch darkness because in darkness, where you can't see anything and you can just think more about yourself, you can find the answer over there. And in fact, that's what's happening because in the moment in which he's rebelling against his own self, that side of his personality or the body, the container that keeps not moving, then he is stepping in the path of, in that dimension of the paths. So as you can see, first there is the acceptance of the limits. Second of all, there is a way to ascend from the bottom. And third of all, you can reach light once again. But without all these steps, it's impossible for you to reach the goal. Do you understand what I mean? So, this moment in which darkness is prevailing, in which Armin he is feeling lonely by himself. For a second, it reminds me even. Do you remember when Daida in the ranking of the kings? He is in pitch dark before realizing what's essential for his life and the mistakes that he made toward Boggi. It's the same thing here. Armin needs to find himself in pitch darkness to realize some certain things, essential things, to move forward and reach what he needs to reach. That means the dimension of the paths. That means meet Zik and be and have his mind so clean and feel conscious once again of the goal that he has to reach, that even when he's reaching the dimension of the paths, one thing that he's saying first is, let's think. Let's keep thinking. So this contrast between trying almost losing his mind and then regain it, because he finally opened that limit, that cage that was containing him so much, that was limiting him, let him reach something important, that is consciousness, that is knowledge, those missing pieces of the puzzle that he needed to move forward. Eh, and here we have Bertold appearing in front of him, crying. We talked about these tears even yesterday in the previous live streaming, so I don't want to repeat myself, but basically, the fact that Armin now is confronting even Bertold, who's crying, it's a way for Armin to understand Bertold more, because even Bertold, by becoming the Colossal Titan, he was limited inside that container that is the Colossal Titan, and he was even feeling limited because of other people's choices, because Bertold didn't want to become a Titan. He was forced by other people's convictions that that was the right thing to do, but all kids are never willing to join war or to join these procedure to become a Titan. They were forced by others. So Bertold definitely understood Armin in this moment, and Armin definitely understood Bertold in this moment, because they both are experiencing confinement in a different way, but it's similar. And even the fact that they have even the same Titan in common makes you understand that now more than ever, Armin is reaching Bertold's soul, and he is not only recollecting Bertold's memories, but even Bertold's feelings right now. Because now more than ever, Armin has the chance to confront someone who experienced almost the same things. Because even Bertold didn't want to transform and let the old Shiganshina collapse. If you remember what he was saying, anyway, someone has to do it, but that doesn't mean he wanted to do it. Okay. And he at that time in season two too, not just the season three part two when he's transforming, right? But even in season two, he was deeply crying when he was saying, "Look, you don't understand. Someone has to do this anyway." At that time, we couldn't understand Bertold, but now we understand his point of view, his sorrow and his pain, the pain he felt in that moment. Because even Armin is feeling the same pain now, especially after he transformed into the Colossal Titan. That is something that he actually didn't want to do. Okay, but he did it to go and save Eren, to go and pick Eren and bring him back, to stand next to his best friend's side. That is more or less what Bertold did when he was standing next to Reiner. Reiner, he was maybe his great friend, and he wanted to support his friend, even if he knew that this was something really bad to do. But anyway, that tier, and the fact that Bertold appears even now in this moment in front of Armin, it's pretty meaningful to me, because that tier, as much as I said yesterday, represents even the fact that he is impotent to do anything right now, because right now Bertold is controlled by Eren. Physically speaking, I'm saying. I mean, the Titan form of the Colossal Titan of Bertold is controlled by Eren. And he feels impotent because actually he doesn't want to be part of this anymore. He wants to rest in peace, but he can't. Because until this Titan's power is not over, he will always go back to the past, present, future, past, present, future, based on Eren's will. So these memories that Bertold have will not be erased until he will rest in peace and whatsoever. So he feels confined as much as Armin feels confined. But is this a tear a request of help? I mean, maybe this tier is Bertold asking Armin to help him, because actually what he's doing with his colossal titan form, because he's controlled by Eren, doesn't represent what he really wants to do. He thought that after dying, probably he could have rested in peace, but actually it's not true, because the Titan moved to Armin. So until this Titan's power is over, nothing is going to change. All the owners, even if they are dead, and physically speaking, so they can be controlled by Eren in this case, but they are not dead as for the soul, as for the memories, as for the thoughts. So that tear is pretty meaningful. And Armin feels the same right now. He feels hopeless because he wants to do something, but he can't because his body is not moving. He feels that he knows perfectly knows that his best friend has to be killed, but somehow a part of himself doesn't want to do it because anyway it's his best friend. So he's in a cage, and I really like the way in which Bertold comes back now, because nobody understood him at that time in season two. Even Armin couldn't understand what he was saying. Also, because they didn't know what was on the other side of the ocean, for sure. But at that time, Armin was not a Titan. So he couldn't understand, he couldn't have the right sensitiveness to understand what Bertold was feeling. He couldn't even understand Eren himself because at that time, Armin was not completely connected to the paths. But now that Armin is a Titan, he can be connected to the paths. So he is not a normal Eldian, let's say. He is an Eldian with the power of the Titans, and we know that he is automatically connected to the founding Titan. Who has the founding Titan's power now? Eren. So um, he also can be confused, he also can feel hopeless, he also can feel inside a cage. So now Armin is understanding the Titans or the Titans owners better, absolutely better than before. And in fact now Bertold is appearing in front of Reiner as the Titan's form. And it's in the same moment in which, on the other side, Bertold is crying in front of Armin. So is it a request of help? Because we know that after Armin is reaching Zeke and they are having that beautiful conversation about life, and then they are trying to change the Titan owners' minds about the importance of being living, Bertold can rest in peace later. Of course, he will rest in peace because Eren will be defeated. But in general, even in that moment when Zeke is, no, when Armin is saying goodbye to Bertold later, it's a way of resting in peace. And now, once they understood the importance of life and why it's so important to be alive still, and why it's so important that they have lived, he can rest in peace. So that tear of Bertold that is corresponding to the moment in which Bertold Titan's power is appearing in front of Reiner. It's a request of help. Armin, now that you understand me, now that you understand how suffering is, the moment in which you discover you are confined in a cage, you can't rebel anymore, and you can't defend yourself anymore because you're dead physically speaking, so the body's not responding anymore and it's controlled by somebody else who I don't want, and my thoughts are deprived because they are not even heard. You, Armin, that you are experiencing the same thing right now, please do something to stop all this, because we wanted to rest in peace, but we can't until Eren is alive, until the Titan's power is still going on. So do something, okay? I really liked the moment. I, I mean, I really like the choice of Isayama to bring Bertold back, because Armin, who's supposed to save humanity, who's supposed to be the hero of this story, and was chosen because of this. And later, when we will reach that moment, I will talk about all the connections possible with all the other episodes too, etc., etc. It makes you understand that Armin has to find the key of everything. Except for Mikasa, who's trying to find another solution, another key for the story. But Armin was chosen on purpose to save humanity. So before saving humanity, he needs all the pieces of the puzzle. Otherwise, he can't do that. But now we are reaching it. So little by little, and it's also thanks to Armin, let's say, that Zeke could understand lots of things. So try to imagine if Erwin was there. It would have not been the same. We needed Armin to figure this out. And that choice, even Levi is saying it later, I don't regret this choice that I made. Exactly. There's no regretment of this. That choice, I mean, to choose Armin was the best thing ever. Because if Erwin would have been chosen, now we would have found, yes, Bertold, Bertold the Titans forms, and Erwin that is talking to Zeke. But there is no purpose because Erwin didn't appreciate what he was living. He was not appreciating the moments of his life because he was always running toward his goal, that is the basement. And he was not appreciating anything. He was focusing too much on the goal. But Armin is not like that. Armin understands the importance of life. Even if he was not considered the best, it was worth living for other reasons. And he could open Zeke's mind in a different way. So that choice that was made, it was perfect. It was coherent. It was the best choice they could have made. Especially because Bertold and Armin, they have the same sort of a personality at the beginning. Fragile, who didn't want to transform, who didn't want to, who were afraid. In fact, Bertold is always behind the Reiner. I mean, he is the colossal titan. He is the god of destruction, but he's always behind Reiner. And Reiner was always choosing. The same thing happened for Armin. Someone else was always choosing for him, even in the previous seasons. Even if he had some ideas that later they were demonstrated that they were correct. But Armin was always, I don't know if I can do it. It's the same. So we needed the same person to confront the previous owner, that is Bertold, to help him resting in peace by understanding that their lives mattered. Even if they thought they were hopeless and that they were meaningless, their existence mattered. And Bertold's existence mattered because later we see what happens. After Armin and Zeke are talking to the previous owners, Bertold is going against Eren, trying to stop these titans resurrected by Eren. Finally, he can make a choice, and this choice is responding to the body. But if Erwin was there, this type of conversation could have not come out. Because Erwin had the goal of the basement. But after the goal of the basement, what was happening? I mean, once Erwin reached the goal, did he live his life? I mean, did he pay attention on the life he was living, or he was paying attention to the goal only? From my perspective, he was paying attention to the goal only. In fact, even if his armor was gone, he said, "Let me go ahead." And then I mean, even when Levi asked him to die, Erwin felt disappointed because he wanted to be there to see the basement with everyone. So his goal in life was the basement, but without the basement, even Erwin's existence was gone because there was no other purpose in life. It's like a Vinland saga when Thorfinn thinks about Ashelado only, and he always thinks about the way in which he has to defeat Ashelado. But Ashelado himself is asking him, "Once I am gone, Thorfinn, what's your purpose in life?" That's the same thing. Same. So I think that Armin has the goal to reach the ocean, has even after he reaches the ocean, he even has other goals. Because when he discovers that there is the world outside, he wants to reach the continents full of ice, the desert, blah blah blah. But once he discovers that there is a humanity outside of the walls, he is not doing like Eren wants. That means exterminate all of them. But he wants to meet these people, to talk to these people, to try to convince them that they are not wrong. I mean, that they are not evil people or demons. He has other goals after. And even after Eren dies, he will surely have other things to do in life. But Erwin seems that after the basement, his life, okay, I discovered what's in the basement. And that's it. So I think that this choice was properly made. And it was impossible for Erwin to have a conversation with Zeke of this level. I mean, talking about the appreciation of life based on specific moments. I don't think this would have happened with Erwin. No, no, no. Hi, hello, hello. Okay, so let me go on and see how it goes on. Sorry, but sometimes I need these digressions to let you understand how I feel and what I mean. Otherwise, we can't go on. Okay, let's go on. Titan form of Bertold is attacking Reiner, that it's something that he doesn't want to do, intentionally speaking, and that's why he's even crying in front of Armin in the same moment. And because it's this form of the Titan he has, he's attacking his best friend. Of course, he doesn't want to do that. Of course, he's against it. And he's also against it because he is controlled by someone, by Eren, who doesn't understand that they are used. So listen to me. I mean, think about it. Eren is against slavery. He's against people who are using people. Now he is using him. Now he is using Bertold. He is using Historia's friend Ymir. He is using Marcel. He is using Porco. He is using the Sensu no Kyojin. I mean, the Hammer Titan. Did he use even Ymir? Oh, probably. To grant the power. So Eren is against slavery. I mean, he's against. I mean, wants to reach freedom. Of course, later he says that he's a slave of freedom. Okay, it makes sense. But when he was meeting Armin and Mikasa, when he said, "Mikasa, I've always hated you," in that moment he said, "I don't like slaves. I hate slaves." But no, I hate being enslaved by someone else. Okay, but you that you are supposed to go against slavery, you are using others. So what's the difference between you and the King Fritz who was using Ymir to have kids? Now you are using the previous owners of Titans to resurrect them and do something they don't want to do. I mean, it's incoherent. It's incoherent because Eren was the first one to be confined inside the walls, and he felt disappointed about knowing the fact that humanity was even outside. After the ocean, he was the one felt used by others, but now he is using others. Is that a way to repay what he felt because it's a matter of his revenge? Sure, but it's incoherent in this case. And then, okay, I really like in this moment when Reiner unfortunately is attacked by Bertolt's Titan's form. I really like to see Karina's face because now more than ever she is assisting. I mean, she is in front. She is looking the scenario that Reiner usually saw in his life. I mean, usually Karina was at home and Reiner was going to war. Reiner was going to different missions, okay? Especially, no, he was going to that mission that later he couldn't come back anymore until a certain moment. But Karina now is facing with her own eyes what her convictions, what her beliefs turned Reiner into something that it's pretty dangerous. And she condemned her kid to something like this. I mean, that's the first time Karina is understanding how Reiner was risking his life all the times. And I really like to see her acceptance of how bad she was choosing for him and how she feels impotent now because she can't do anything to prevent Reiner from being attacked, from being hit, etc., etc. So I like to see that human beings, as much as I told you before, they think they are almighty based on their ideals and no one can change these beliefs and they think they are always right. And now here there is the demonstration in front of her eyes that she was completely wrong and she condemned his kid based on her beliefs. And those beliefs created the mess that she is looking in front of her eyes right now. So she feels really guilty. As a previous generation person, she feels guilty because she could have changed the things. But at that time, she was too convinced. And when people are too convinced, they definitely and obviously make mistakes. Look at Eren. He is super convinced of what he is doing, but then he understands that he makes a mistake. He can't get rid of that curse. I mean, he can't get rid of the fact that he wants to move forward because that's how he is. But at the same time, by being too convinced, he's making a mistake, a huge mistake that can't be repaid. I mean, that can't be fixed anymore. He can't repay for what he did. He can't. He is already condemned. There is no way that he has to survive, right? But in the case of Reiner, he made a development as a character that now makes him survive based on his right choices. I mean, after he made some sort of mistakes because he was influenced by others, because he was convinced by others, because he was forced by others, Reiner now can choose by himself without being confined into that cage that we can call the beliefs or brainwashing. Now Reiner can think by himself. And Karina, little by little in these final episodes, we understood that she is understanding her mistakes and she wants to change too. That's why she's surviving. Eren can't survive because his convictions are more important. He wants to move forward. He doesn't want to change his mind about what to do. He can recognize the mistake he made, but he doesn't want to change his goal, that is moving forward, doing what he was doing. That's why he can't survive, because if you are too presumptuous and if you don't try to change your mind about some things, especially when the things are bad, there's no point for you to survive, because if you survive, you will influence, negatively speaking, others. Again, we need the people who survive because they wanted to change. Then it's not automatically possible that all the people survived, they all changed. But the proportion, the percentage of the people who changed throughout these events is increasing. And then I wanted to specify another thing. If you notice that when Bertold now is getting Reiner, and the head of Reiner seems going away, I mean, it seems going to be cut. It reminds me season one. Here in this last episode, we have so many connections with the season one. Do you remember when Annie was getting Reiner at that time, and at that time they didn't even know who Annie, Bertold, and Reiner were. But even in that case, his head exploded in that moment. Of course, he could regain everything because he was the armored Titan. But this connection is amazing because right now, in that moment, Annie was doing the same thing that now Bertold is doing, but he's not controlling his own body, so it's not his will. That's amazing. That's really really amazing. Now I don't remember. Yeah, when Eren tried to defeat Reiner in season two, I don't remember. Yeah, after he says "Uragirimana," I don't remember if he was pointing at his head or not somehow. But yeah, let's go ahead. Oh, and then and then there is another beautiful scene. Sorry, I'm cleaning my nose for a second. Then there is another beautiful scene, and the scene is when John and Reiner are talking. Amazing. First of all, I wanted to describe for a second the scenario because right now, after that Bertold's attack, and before the Bertolds attack, they are on top of the skeleton. Now they go inside the skeleton. I really like it because it's not the first time that they make a contrast between upper and below, especially because if you remember in the previous episode, when Eren is saying Giuda, Korea Giuda, that's freedom. Even in that case, there was a difference between upper side and bottom side. I mean, down below. Okay, that means on top, you have a vision of things. You have the clouds. You have these beautiful scenario. Let's say beautiful landscape in front of you, panorama, and down below you have something terrestrial. I mean, I want to say it like this because the title of the episode is The Battle of Heaven and Earth. So, even from the title, you understand the contrast between heaven, the people who are gone but they are still stuck, and earth. And even this contrast between something that is gone and something that is still here, it's a metaphor that I can reconnect even to the discussion between Zeke and Armin later. That I will say it later. For the moment, I skip it for a second. But I want to skip it for a second because I want to focus myself. Yes, the battle of heaven and earth. Thank you. Yes. But this contrast between the sky and the earth, heaven and earth. Heaven, I mean, earth that now is turning into hell. So, heaven and hell. But even the contrast between these Titan's power that seems to be almighty, that seems to rule on people, to make people feel confined into cages or feel cursed. So these unlimited, that seems to be unlimited power with the things that are making the characters feel human. And it means people down on earth. That means people who can't have the right to choose who's going to survive and who's not going to survive. People who are selfish. I mean, there is this huge contrast between what you can reach and what you can't reach. That means the limits that all people have that can let you think some things, but then the illusion is gone and you understand what's going on. I mean, you understand who you really are. And I think that this symbolism is quite evident. Even now that Reiner and John are talking under the skeleton is something that reflects human beings, right? And at the same time, this skeleton refers even to the body of that creature that became bigger based on the amount of years that it could survive. That it's considering a way to multiply because that creature multiplied into 9 titans power. So it went on throughout the centuries. And it's connecting, in my opinion, to the conversation that Zeke and Armin are having later. That means this will to survive, this will to keep going on after difficulties, the strength that comes out in the hardest moments, that is the will of surviving. But it's connecting to that conversation because we are talking about life that keeps wanting to go on living without giving up and face death and trying to contrast death. because death brings fear. I mean, life is afraid of death. As much as I said yesterday, life can't be death. So, of course, one is afraid of the other one. And one can't be the other one. So, of course, life wants to go ahead, wants to keep going on, resisting to death, even if human beings can do this till a certain point, because we are limitful, we have a limit of time. But I like that when John and Reiner are talking, they are under the skeleton, I mean, inside of the skeleton, because in that moment, as much as the creature wants to survive, they also want to survive. They also don't want to give up or going on living. And they are confined by this skeleton because they are human beings, and human beings are living things. So if you go up in the sky, I mean, if you go to heaven, you didn't survive physically speaking, but you survived as a soul. So when people are saying, are we eternal? I mean, are we infinite? As for the body, no, we are not. But as for the soul, like in this case, that the Titan's power keeps stuck the owners, the previous owners of the Titan over there in the memories of others, in the memories of other owners, until the Titan powers go on. Because that creature wants to survive and keep going on living. At the same time, the soul of these people is not gone already, because their memories are still over there. Their souls are still trapped over there, confined over there, and they are not gone until someone remembers them. So, are we limited? Yes, physically speaking, on this earth, we are limited. But are we limited as souls? No, we are not. I think that until people remember others that they are gone, physically speaking, they keep being alive. So even if we are afraid of death, that is something natural. I mean, we are all afraid of dying somehow. But if we know that we can leave our memories or what we were to others, and these others are remembering us, immediately after we can think that we are infinite. At least until people remember us, we keep going on living. So the important thing is to understand the distinction between corpse, I mean body, and soul. And that's why there is this battle, heaven versus earth, because those who are in heaven, because they are gone, they still matter. Look at even the people who Levi, Hanji, and all the others keep remembering of the Chosahedan, of the corpse, that they keep being remembered. It means that they keep going on living, and until they are remembered, they keep going on living. That's really great. That's awesome to understand that even those who are from heaven can still make a difference. So I really like the fact that now on top, yes, logistically speaking, as a scene, as a scenario, on top now of the bones, you have all the people resurrected by Eren as previous owners, Titan's forms, and John and Reiner, who are under the skeleton, I mean, inside this huge skeleton, they are still alive. While on top of the skeleton, they are all gone, actually, physically speaking. But they can contribute to make something as a final decision. So this huge battle, heaven and earth, keeps going on, even thanks to Eren, who is resurrecting thanks to the founding Titan's power. The forms of the Titan, I mean, not only the forms, but even the feelings, the memories of these owners who are gone. And it seems to be an infinite battle until there is the moment to change something. And we have to thank Armin. Once again, we have to thank Earth, that as a paradox is changing even heaven, and those who are gone. So this is pretty amazing. But the contrast that you see even of colors, that is the sky, it's pretty blue, and while under these skeleton, the colors, I mean the tones of colors keep being so warm, that it's yes, the contrast between heaven and hell, more than heaven and earth, because this earth right now is facing the rumbling, and the rumbling is making all the earth collapsing. Of course, I'm talking about the population, but even as a scenario that everything turns red, it's like a hell on earth, right? So yeah, I really want to praise Mappa because of the choice of colors, and even when they are making based on colors the contrasts of the scenario. I really think that they pay attention on these details that are fundamental, because in the manga you can't find those things. I mean, in the manga it's all black and white, so by being black and white you can't recognize some sort of symbolisms based on colors that really matter, because we noticed that even in the previous seasons that those colors are effective to explain some sort of things that in the manga they can't be explained, rather than imagining them. And I think, yes, this visual ability to show you something based on colors, based on symbols, based on metaphors, they are, I mean, they are increasing uh, the way of understanding this story. Okay, Connie is surviving thanks to Mikasa, and Levi is having a hard time. And then, while the colossal titans still rumble deep down, I mean, under John and Reiner, John and Reiner are having a conversation that is so great. Let's hear it. But look. Now Reiner is saying to Jan, sorry, my ODM doesn't function very well. Let's go to season one. When Marco died because the ODM was malfunctioning. This is a sort of a karma that comes back. And who is reaching Reiner right now is Marco's best friend. And John suffered a lot because of that loss. And when John knew that Reiner was the one ordering Annie and Bertold to leave Marco over there. Now the situation is the contrary. Now Reiner is having the ODM malfunctioning, and he's in the same condition as Marco was, because under Reiner there are the colossal titans, but there are even the titans made by Eren, resurrected by Eren, who are attacking them. But now Reiner is saved by Jan. That's amazing if you think about it. Because now Reiner is feeling the exact things that Marco felt at that time. Now the ODM doesn't work. So what's going to happen? Let's hear. Of course, even John has problems with the ODM in the moment, but he didn't refrain from saving him. So Reiner said, John, let me go. I will find my way to transform one more time. But John says, and then what do you do? Only to get trampled by the rumbling armor and all? He says, yes, you can transform maybe, but if I let you go, there is the risk you can die. And there is this beautiful vision in which you see the skeleton, that it's like a cage, because that skeleton in this moment, it's like a cage that it's trapping all of them under it, to let them not be free. And throughout these skeletons bones, there is the light coming inside. Amazing. But under them there is the steam, those clouds produced by the colossal titans moving, and also by the steam they they can produce. So these contrast light versus clouds, the confinement that is this skeleton, it's like a cage for them, because they find themselves always in the same situation. They are almost losing. Throughout the seasons, we saw always the same things. They are almost losing all the times, until something happens, of course. But there is always that risk in which they can't stay free. They can't breathe. They can't feel peaceful. They are always under attack. They can't live freely. They can't live peacefully because they are always under attack. So there is this sort of cage that is made even by the bones of this creature, because this creature perpetrated the battles over and over again for 2,000 years. But there is even the contrast, the light versus the light coming inside of the skeleton, and even the clouds under them. The light that is the hope that we can survive somehow, and the clouds that is taking them back to earth, that is to the fight, to the murders, to the wrong things. So they are over there. It's like a limbo. They are in the middle over there. It's something ethereal, something mystic, that vision. That's why I chose it more or less even for the thumbnail. Because even in the thumbnail that I put today, you see all these creatures, I mean, all these previous Titan owners forms surrounding John and the Reiner. It's like a a battle between yes, heaven and hell, because those, they seem like demons, because that's how they were called. The attack of the demons, and they try to struggle to survive. But now I want to ask Reiner, did you understand what Marco felt when the ODM didn't work? And Johnny is holding your hand. That's amazing. We have never thought that this would have happened in season one, or in season two, or in season three. But it's happening. And John is saying another thing. No, actually, Reiner says, asks him, you think we can still win? In that moment, he feels like Marco, because Marco's ODM was malfunctioning because of Reiner. And in front of himself, he realized that he's in front of Titans. So even in that case, even Marco, I think he would have guessed the same. Do you think we can? Do I think that we can win still? In fact, John is saying, I don't think so. But, and here is the greatness of John. Sentence number one of his greatness is, but let's at least keep fighting all the way to the end. That is exactly what Niccolo said in season 4, part 2. Let's try to go out from the forest. Let's keep trying. Or, anyway, it's the same thing that Zeke is telling Armin. When life is alive, let's say, when there's life, you keep wanting to go on until the end. You keep trying to survive. So even if in their opinion there's no way that they can win, because they are surrounded by demons, they are surrounded by titans, they are next to Eren, and their number of people is definitely less than what they have in front of them. Anyway, let's keep trying till the end. That is even the same thing Mueller said at the beginning of this live streaming, because he said to the personal, to his people who were afraid because the number of people was less than before. Mueller said, do you think that just because the number of the people is less, we should have to stop fighting? No, we have to keep going on trying. That's how human beings react. That's how human beings are. In the least, in the worst moment, they keep trying. That is even the thing that is happening to Armin too. Because Armin, who feels hopeless, then suddenly finds the proper thing to react and to keep trying. So that's the main instinct of human beings. Keep trying. Never give up. You are almost dying. Keep trying to survive. Keep trying to go on and breathe. And this is already one amazing sentence that the John said in this episode. But it's not over, because he says something else that is essential. We are Scout Regiment. That means we are Chosahedan. Scouts don't know when to quit. And this sentence is super great. I love John so much. I think even John, yes, even John made a development of character that is simply amazing. If you think about how John was before, I mean, how John was before joining the Chosa Hedan and how he is now, what a change, what a development. First of all, he's saying, we are Chosa Hedan. So, after even in this moment that reminds me of Marco's death, and in that moment in previous seasons, John felt betrayed by Reiner, specifically because Reiner ordered Marco's death. In this situation, after they rejoined the forces, after they made it, I mean, they made up and they went back together, he is recognizing, first of all, that they are friends. And second of all, John, he is recognizing Reiner as a scout member, as a Chosa Hedan member, because that's what Reiner has always wanted to be. If we go back in the previous seasons, Reiner said it honestly. When I was in Paradise, everyone was praising me. Everyone was loving me. There was no forcement. I was not forced. I was not forced to do anything because others were asking me. I was living together with these people. We were all friends, and I felt as if I was reliable and as if I was human, as if there were no differences, or at least even if there were differences, everyone was appreciated, everyone was precious, important, and whatsoever. So the fact that now John says we are Chosa Hedan, it's like as if he is saying, you have never left us. You were always our friend. We always considered you as part of the team. And this is amazing because John could step on his revengeful thoughts. And that's why John will survive. John will survive because he can step on his revengeful thoughts. And this is obvious. He stepped on them. Because in season 4, part 2, if, for a second, he tried to punch Reiner, he tried to say that he would have never forgiven him for everything he did to Marco. But he did it. He kept trying to change. And he did it. He forgave Reiner. And at the same time, he did what Marco would have told him to do. That means forgive him. So I think that Marco would be so proud of him right now for the choice he made. Because he was able to talk to Reiner, to have a conversation with him, and to be able to step on his revengeful thoughts. If you remember, before Marco died, what he said, his final words were, if we could have talked more. John did it. John did it also for Marco, to let him rest in peace, because they talked, they discussed, they found something that they had in common. That means the cruel world they live in. And John didn't forget Reiner's pain, didn't forget how his life was. how hard it was for Reiner to choose to do these kind of things, he went beyond. So Jan is not a superficial character. He is not superficial, not at all. He's really deep as a character, and that's why he needs to survive after all these. Because we need people like Jan in the world who can change their mind, step on their revengeful thoughts, try to redeem themselves, etc., etc. So even Jan's choice to join Chosahedan was amazing, and it was useful, because if Jan didn't join Chosahedan, now Reiner would have been dead. Let's say. So as you can see, all events make sense. And it was thanks to Marco that Jan joined Chosahedan. Because Marco said, look, I think that you will be a great commander one day. I think that people will listen to you. And I remember how reluctant Jan was to join Chosahedan because he was afraid of risking his life. He was afraid. He preferred a comfort life. He preferred to stay inside the walls, to do his job, and then to go back home and have a life with his wife and his daughters or sons. I mean, Jan wanted a standard life, but later he overcame this standard life. Jan is one of the most characterization of characters in this story, one of the most brilliant. We have to thank Marco, but we have to thank even his own personality. That means be able to step on revengeful thoughts and be sure to save the one who he considered a friend, and now he is still his friend because he forgave him, and be sure to go on together. That was one of the most incredible moments of this episode. I think Marco would have been so proud of him now. Totally. So the fact that he's recognizing Reiner as a scout member, I mean, as a Chosahedan member, speaks for all. And then he's even saying, scouts don't know when to quit. That's true. That's what the Chosahedan is, because the Chosahedan is still, let's say, alive as a organization. They are still there because the goal of Chosahedan is to save humanity, and that's what they are trying to do. There are no more sides now. There's humanity versus Eren now. Jan, of course, Reiner feels emotional in that moment. Of course, I would have felt emotional too, because he is understanding how Jan is amazing as a person, not as a scout member, as a person. Oh my, look, emotional, amazing, amazing, amazing. Levi tried risked his life to save Connie, so we don't have to forget this. I mean, even in this case, if Levi was not here, things would have gone differently. Wow, amazing! I mean, Mikasa is also watching that scene when Johnny is rescuing Reiner. Amazing, amazing, and I really like even the moment in which Mikasa is flying with the ODM on top of the colossal titans. Amazing. But we are in a moment in which everything is collapsing. So it's not an idyllic moment, not at all. I mean, we are trying to survive here. Yes, and there is that frame that I put even in the thumbnail of today, in which these previous Titans forms they are surrounding Jan and Reiner. It seems like an attack of demons. Yeah, it's like as if under the Titan they are in deep hell. And Mikasa is looking around because she's kind of desperate because she's saying, look, over there Levi is almost gone because he tried to save Connie. On the other hand, we have John and Reiner who are trying to survive somehow. I am the only one here, so but did you hear Mikasa's voice that is resounding inside this skeleton? There is a pure silence, and there is even the echo that you hear of her voice. Koi! That means, come here, come at me. And she's even changing her eyes because of before that change, she feels hopeless too. She feels desperate because Armin is missing. They are all collapsing, almost. They are, even their number is inferior. And then, as I told you, the will to survive, the will to not give up. She's changing her eyes and she's saying, Koi, come at me. But these koi, I mean, these sentences, they are echoing inside this skeleton. It's like as if she has a megaphone, okay? And actually, she is talking to Eren because these Titans forms are made by Eren thanks to the Hammer Titan's power. So this voice of hers that it's so loud, as if Eren is listening pretty well, that this is the only voice that is echoing, if you notice. While Jan is talking, Reiner is talking, Connie is talking, Levi is talking, they don't make any echo. When she is talking, there is the echo. Amazing, because Eren is listening. And he is hearing Koi, Watashi wa tsuyoi. I am strong. That's what Eren hoped for her, sincerely. I mean, Eren has always hoped that Mikasa would have gained strength, emotionally speaking. So the fact that he is hearing this, he feels really happy for that. But these sentences that are resounding in the atmosphere, I mean, in the context we are now, makes you understand even the development of Mikasa's character. From a woman who was always depending on her love to Eren, little by little, she's building her own self without him. And I like Mikasa so much for this. She is inspiring people to not be dependent on others or on some things, but to grow up by themselves, inside themselves, and have this development that you are strong even if you are not depending on anybody else. You can be strong even without others. You should be strong without others because now she's by herself. She doesn't have her comrades, but she is strong. And that's admirable because maybe others would have given up, like Connie. See, he had a moment in which he was about to give up. All the others were giving up, but she didn't give up. So she's the light of hope in this moment. And Eren knows that. Because Eren could have killed all of them, but he's not killing them because they are free to attack. But he's not free, let's say, to attack them because of his principle. And his principle is to let them live a longer life because he saw it already. But I like that he let her shine in all these. She needs to shine because she was always behind him, and she did it on purpose. We know that, to make him shine. But there's no way. I mean, why do you have to let others shine when you can shine and can be better? For love. And that's the main subject. Then we will confront it next time in part 3 of this analysis. That's love, the point. Love, if it's toxic, if it's making you feel dependent, that's not a love. That's a possession. That's a attachment, but it's not love. And that's why Mikasa needed this time without all this time without Eren to understand that she has to love herself first for how she is, for the thoughts that she has, not because she thinks that if Eren said, look, you get these thoughts because you wanted to follow me, because I am your king, let's say, and you developed this Ackerman power. No. She is confident with herself because she's developing her thoughts, and nobody can say the contrary. I mean, nobody can say, no, that's Eren's thought. No, that's what the other person told me to do. No, she is little by little reaching the right knowledge to develop her own strength, her own thoughts, without feeling doubtful about it. Because if she's not convinced first, she can't do anything. She needs to follow a process, I mean, a development as a character that needs to let her understand, firstly, that she doesn't depend on anybody else rather than herself, that she's free to love whoever she wants. She's free to develop some thoughts and believe that those are her thoughts and be convinced about that. And she not necessarily needed to depend on anybody else to be sure of herself or to be alive. She depended on Eren since the beginning, sincerely. Because when she was saved by Grisha and Eren, in that moment when her parents died, she felt so grateful that she became dependent on Eren. She depended on him totally. She joined the Chosahedan because Eren joined the Chosahedan. She wanted to go to a place because Eren was in that place. She wanted even to join sometimes the same team because Eren was in that team and she was in another one. Until Eren gave her, hit her head and told her, look, don't follow me. But she was always depending on Eren. Eren's choices, Eren's decisions, Eren's thoughts. Eren, physically speaking, Eren, she was depending on him, totally. But little by little, I think this separation wasn't necessary for her to understand that love is not just when you are together, but love is also when you are departing, when you are not together anymore. Love can stay, even if you're not depending on that person. And love is sure if that's what you want because you decide what to do and not because you're depending on other people's choices. So the fact that Eren separated from her, it was pretty painful, absolutely, because she has never had that experience rather than the moment in which They separated because Rainer, Bertold, Annie, and Ymir took Eren away from them. And then the first thing she said, she was grabbing the scarf and saying, "I wanted to be there with him." So you understand? But except for that moment, there was not a huge separation. Then in season 4, there was a huge separation, but it was necessary. It was something that that Eren was forced to do for Mikasa to develop as a character, and for Mikasa to understand that she can be strong without him, she can think without him, she can survive without him. She's independent. That's why I love Mikasa's character so much, because that's a hope for everyone, not just for women, but for everyone to understand that even if Mikasa is a woman, that doesn't mean that we have to be feminist for sure and think, oh, this is the representation of the woman that can be independent. No, but this stands for everyone, not just women. As a subject to be independent and to be proud of who we are, and be sure to be able to choose and never feel forced or never feel depending on others when we have to choose. It refers not just women, everyone in the world. So she is a good example for everyone, not for just women. No, not at all. But I'm happy when these voices echoing, it's resounding inside this skeleton, under this skeleton, because even Eren is listening. If even Eren wants to know how she changed, and she is changing. Then, of course, they are interrupted. She's interrupted by Annie and Falco Gabi, who are coming. But I definitely like that moment in which she said, "No matter how much you attack me." Actually, she's talking to Eren because these creatures are created by Eren. So she's already going somehow against Eren, even if it's not Eren, the one that she's killing later, but she is already showing and saying to him, "I am strong, come and attack me because I can defend myself." That's wow. I mean, amazing. I loved that moment sincerely. And then, of course, yes, Falco, Gabi, and Annie are coming, and they say, "Please don't be in the way, Mikasa, we are coming." Even in that case, Falco, at this point, we can say thank you, Zeke, one more time, because Falco transformed into Titan thanks to Zeke. But if Falco was not transformed into Titan thanks to Zeke, he couldn't come to help them now. So, we needed to thank Zeke one more time as a paradox here. Falco is there because Zeke transformed him into a Titan. So if for some others it was a curse, let's say, in some cases it was really nice that this happened. Let's say, otherwise, how they would have been able to do that? Impossible, because they didn't have the proper time to reach them. If Falco was not there, Gabi and Annie couldn't reach them, right? But even Falco as a human being, all three couldn't reach them. And Annie couldn't rescue later Armin when he was pulled out one more time. Or she couldn't rescue all the others while they were having a hard time. See? Everything is meaningful. Everything means a lot in this story, and nothing is a coincidence. Everything matters. So I'm happy when stories like these make you understand that even if a choice seems to be wrong at the beginning, maybe later it can turn even good. Falco saved everyone. Listen to me. I mean, good job. And do you remember years ago when I was here telling you, Eren spoke to Falco in season 4, part 1, and he told him, "You will have a long life. I hope you will have," no, something like a, "You will have a long life," or something like that. He saw it. He knew that Falco would have had a great role in this story, and he also knew that he would have survived, that he would have had a long life later with Gabi. So Falco was chosen from the beginning, was chosen. It was not a coincidence that day Falco met Eren and he thought that he was a soldier who survived. It was all predicted somehow, all written. Even the fact that Falco wrote the letters to the comrades of Eren to let them come for Liberio's attack, it was all projected already. Even when Eren is saying to Mikasa, Armin, and all the others, I want that they have a long life. They had it because he saw it already. But the story had to end in that way. Otherwise, if the story went differently on, there was the chance that this would have not happened. So Eren was stuck inside this curse on purpose. I mean, Eren was stuck in this story, cursed, being cursed, but he had to be cursed to create this mess because otherwise the story would have been different, would have gone in a different way, and it was not possible. He knew already by himself that the story would have not been possible to modify. Do you remember when he even said it after Sasha's death? He said it, I tried to change some things, but I noticed that I couldn't change them. He said it, season 4, part 1. Few moments and then we will be over for today. But anyway, wow, let me say thank you, Mappa, to show Falco that he's flying around that panorama, I mean, around that setting in that way. Amazing. Yes. And then, as always, Annie's excuses because while they notice that Annie is there, Annie is ready to tell them, listen, I didn't think he would really be able to fly either. That means I came just for that reason. Of course, we know Annie. We know how Annie approaches others because she has always felt scared to show her true self to others, and she has always preferred to protect herself from the vision that others were having of herself. That we know that she's using excuses even now. That she doesn't say, I was coming because I was afraid for Armin's life or I was afraid of all of your lives, guys. No. She's saying, I'm here because I wanted to see if Falco could fly. I mean, it's her way to say, I came here because I wanted to be here because I am also part of these powers. So it's right. It's the right thing that I have to be here. Me too. I mean, if we have to finish this thing, we have to finish it all together. by being a Titan too, it's right that I am here and I can't get rid of my responsibility, because even Annie has a responsibility. Plus, she even wants to know if her father is alive, so she has a double reason to be here, a triple reason to be here, or a fourth reason to be here. So, as you can see, she was scared at the beginning. She was afraid to lose her possibility to have other years coming after and being able to live peacefully. She was a coward to step back, but then she preferred to join because that was the right thing to do. And I agree with that. I agreed in both cases, sincerely. Because if Annie decided to step away, I could have understood her because of her past, because of how much she was used, because of how much she didn't want to even come to the Wall Maria and she was forced by Reiner to join and to go ahead. But I also agree that Annie now she is back because she is part of this story and she can't deny it. She can't move away. She can't step away from it. She can't run away from it because Annie has never been a soldier, or at least a member of the group who ran away. So it was right that even in this case, she didn't run away and she took her responsibility. And she had even the chance to see how Armin was and be sure to see with her own eyes the fact that her love was still alive, that everyone was still alive, that her father was still alive, and that all this pain would have been over. So it was better that she took part of it. And then she's even comforting Mikasa. Because we needed to remember that immediately after this scene, she is saying to Mikasa, don't think about anything else. Now think about this little mission that is to go together with all the others on the other side while we take care of Eren. John and all the others are taking care of it, and you go on the other side to check for Armin. Don't think about anything else. That means don't think about Eren being killed. Don't think about you losing your love, etc., etc. Because she also felt in this way years before. She loved Armin so much and she was afraid even to lose him, and then for a period she lost him, but then we know that Armin went to visit her throughout the years, so she could hear him, she felt comforted, etc., etc., and she confirmed to herself that he loved her. Okay, but for Mikasa is different. But if Annie didn't come here in this moment, Mikasa couldn't feel comforted by someone. So the alliance between these two beautiful women is amazing. They come from two different pasts, from two different stories. They have some things in common, and in the past they were even one against the other one. Especially, do you remember that iconic scene in which Mikasa is on top of Annie and she's saying, Annie, fall now. Now they join forces. Now they are no more one woman against the other woman. They are joining forces. They are one for all for one. But this is amazing if you think about it. Because as much as for John and Reiner, even for Annie and Mikasa, after they talked, they could understand each other's stories and they could go beyond their limits, stepping on their revengeful thoughts. That's why all these characters are surviving, because they are able to do what Eren couldn't do. That means stepping on on their personal revengeful thoughts. And then she's excusing herself one more time by saying, wait a second, I will read this sentence one more time. Eh, but then he actually did it. I mean, she's talking about Falco. Annie says, "Look, I joined because didn't know if Falco really had the ability to fly properly. But then I saw that he can fly. So what choice did I have but to come? That means there was nothing else rather than join at that point. No, no, no. I mean, she wanted to join from the beginning. Falco is just an excuse, of course. And Falco stays silent because he knows already the answer. But okay. Oh, but then finally she has the proper courage to say, "But I'm glad that I've come." That's amazing because she understands that after finding lots of excuses, now they know her. I mean, they know how she is and how she behaves. So it's pointless for her to keep lying and to keep finding excuses. It's the proper time to say how she really feels. That means she says, "Kite yokata." That means I'm glad that I came. Finally, finally, okay, finally she's herself in front of others. And in the meantime, they showed you Annie's father that is looking at that bird, the big bird, and he doesn't even know that on top of that big bird there is his daughter. Eh, And then, of course, Reiner goes against the Gabi because Reiner is protective. I mean, he wants to protect the Gabi so much, especially because Gabi had, no, especially because Falco promised Reiner to never let Gabi join this massacre, this mess, to be part of this tragic story. And Falco promised it, but Gabi is independent. Yes, Gabi is not like Mikasa when Mikasa was young. Gabi has a different sort of a personality that makes her choose whatever she wants in that moment, and nobody can go against it. I mean, nobody can try to stop her. And in this case, she wanted to join because she cares about Falco. And if Falco joined, of course, she would have come because she loves Falco. So it was impossible for her to stay on the other side of the world while here they are risking their lives. And also because she wanted to be part of this story too, because she became a part of the story for many different reasons. And then, okay, Annie, I mean, Reiner says, Annie, that means, Annie, why did you let her join? I was telling all of you guys that I don't want Gabi to join. But then Annie is changing the subject. I mean, she's talking about the Azumabito, etc., etc., etc. So, yes, I think that for today, guys, I will stop the live streaming in this moment, in this precise moment, because then we will have the chance to go ahead more and more. Also, because after this moment, in which she's explaining about the Azumabito, I mean, Kiyomi, and what was her decision to left her behind with the Yelena, etc., etc. There is the important scenes between Armin and Zeke, and we will watch it next time. So, as I was telling you guys, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for joining me in these other live streaming. We were discussing other, yes, 10 minutes more or less, because now we are still we are still 15 minutes of the episode, based on the 85 minutes. But yes, I was happy to make this live streaming, and all the others, they will come out in the future days, in the next days. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, and be sure to keep following me in all these great experience called Shingeki no Kyojin. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here with me, and thank you for all the comments. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, thank you, and hope to see you again really soon with the part three of these endless, because I think it would be pretty endless, analysis, also because after the analysis of the episode, I wanted to recheck the episode, because I wanted to talk about some symbols that maybe I didn't talk about, and then I wanted to discuss together with you even the opening, the last opening and the last ending of this incredible story. So we will have lots of other live streaming to do, so please be sure to be ready. Thank you so much, guys. Hope to see you again next time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye. See you next time. Bye bye.